Several of you have been asking for an updated video about OpenVPN server on Omada's hardware, but there are still some issues, and I think that we've actually regressed with the latest update of the controller software, which is 5.0.30 at time of recording. On my OC200, I have firmware version 1.14.3, and my VPN router, the ER605, I'm on firmware version 1.2.0. So, and again, that's all at the time of filming. And so with all of that stuff, which is the latest today, OpenVPN server has regressed in the sense that now you no longer have access to the internet, which is kind of a good thing because previously you weren't having tunneled internet access. You were just still using the IP address of whatever connection you were using, like at a hotel, your phone, or Starbucks, wherever it was. And then you had access to your home network, but then you couldn't access anything actually on your network with exception to your Omada equipment. So now with the latest update on OpenVPN server, you now have a closed tunnel to your home equipment, and you can access your home equipment, not just your networking equipment, but like for instance, you have a server, you can access that now, but now you lose access to the internet. So if you enable your VPN, you can access everything, but no internet access, which is kind of odd. So I think it's broken, and that's really what's delayed this video so much, is because I've been playing around with things like static routes, routing policies, playing with a double NAT because I do have a gateway and then my router sits behind that gateway. But I don't think that's the issue. I've manually added DNS entries to try and get access to the internet. I haven't really played too much with the OpenVPN server OVPN config file, mostly because I don't really know what I'm doing there and just kind of grabbing code from other OpenVPN configurations and slapping it in there and see what happens. And it either is not reading it or it just doesn't work or is not implemented. So not entirely sure what's going on there, but I've tried all sorts of things and none of that seems to work. So I will show you what my setup currently is, so that way you can get an idea of what is absolutely the worst setup, because with this setup, you literally won't be able to access the internet or anything on your network with exception to the Omada hardware. So I'll show you what that looks like, and then we will fix it so that way you can at least access a server on that is sitting on your Omada hardware, just in case you need to like grab a picture or some files or whatever it may be. So let's get started with that, and yeah, I don't know. As previously mentioned, I have my ISP AT&T, their gateway, sitting right here, and behind the gateway, literally all of this equipment is plugged into it. So here's my ER605 router, switch, and OC200. And then this is the server that I'm trying to access remotely. For this entire video, that is the key. This is an unraid server. And now let's go take a look at the configuration setup. All right, let's first start off by taking a look at my actual OpenVPN server settings. So by default, I think this is the best way to configure it. However, it's not working in this current state, and I think that's because tplink has more work to do, but eventually this should be the end state, in my opinion. So of course we have OpenVPN server selected, we have the UDP port forwarded on my gateway, and we're using the default port for OpenVPN of 1194. In the future, I would like this local network setting to actually function or be usable, but right now it doesn't do anything at all as far as I can tell. And the way that my network is currently set up is I have two VLANs or two subnets. I have the LAN one, which is the default one that comes with the Omada hardware. You can think of that one as like your admin network or subnet. And then I have a server's subnet, and that is where the server I previously just showed you lives on as well. So I have an unraid server that lives on the server's VLAN. And then of course, you know, this is connected through the WAN. And then I gave any client an IP address of 192.168.110.1, so somewhere in that range of 110.1. So I think that's set up correctly, and I've tested this several times now, and this setup is the worst, as in you can't connect to anything on the two subnets that you have specified, except for Omada equipment, which we've seen before in previous videos. but you can't connect to anything else. Now, I know how to get around this, which is great and all, but you still don't have tunneled internet access at this time, which kind of defeats the purpose of the OpenVPN server, in my opinion. Of course, as you can see, let's see here, transmission, I have no static route set, I have no policy routing set. I have played with this stuff. It doesn't seem to affect the subnets for your VLAN. It definitely does affect VLANs and other subnets if you play with these here. And I have nothing in port forwarding because it's not affecting anything in the VPN. Everything is local, of course. We have no session limits. And then I have created some profile groups in the past where I was basically playing around with routing and policies and I guess access control lists and all this gateway ACLs, all this stuff. And none of these seem to actually affect the VPN subnet in any way. Like even blocking the VPN subnet entirely still has no effect. So that's the setup. Now let's go ahead and test this, and I'll show you what would happen if you were to mimic this exact setup. Now I would like to mimic connecting remotely. Obviously I'm still here in my office, and the only way to get myself off of my network is by setting up the hotspot on my phone, so that way I can pretend like I'm not actually here at home. And so I'll just join this laptop via Wi-Fi to the hotspot of my Verizon LTE service, and that will give us a remote connection, and then I'll show you exactly what's not working. So let's take a look. So here we are on my Red Hat desktop. So Red Hat is the operating system I'm using. I can get to Google currently. I'm connected to the Wi-Fi, VPN is off. If I try and go to my Omada equipment, obviously I'm not going to get there because I have totally different IP addresses, and I'm on a totally different network. What is my IP? So I can even show you, here's my Verizon network's IP address, my temporary one anyway, and yeah, nothing's working. Well, I shouldn't say nothing's working. Obviously I can get to Google, but I can't get to my Omada hardware at home. So that's what we would expect, right? Okay, so now let's go ahead and connect to the VPN, my Omada VPN. See here, it is now connected. I can sit here and do what is my IP again. It's not loading. Let's try and go to Google. Not loading. All right, let's go to my Omada equipment. There we go. So I can reach my router, my ER605 router. Let's see if I can reach the Omada controller, and I can. And finally, on the server subnet, which is 192.168.10, I have my Unraid server, and it doesn't connect. Google hasn't loaded. My IP hasn't changed because Google's not working. Let me try a new tab right quick, just in case that one is messed up. 192.168.10.10. Nothing. It's not working at all. So no internet, half access to our home network, and that's about it. Right, so I know I didn't show it, but on my OpenVPN connection, I also have a DNS set of 1.1.1.1.1.1, 4 ones. I've also tried 9.9.9 and 8.8.4.4. None of those work. Either the operating system's not reading the DNS, or that DNS is just not being passed through OpenVPN server, and it's just not being able to read it. And I think maybe that might be part of the reason why I'm not getting internet access. I'm not entirely sure. So let's go back and reconfigure OpenVPN server to at least allow me direct access to my Unraid server that's in the network closet. So that way we know how to at least access a system on our local subnet when we are not at home or remote, whatever it may be. So let's go over there and take a look. Okay, let's go ahead and just delete this configuration and build a brand new one from scratch, just so you guys can at least see the process of setting up the OpenVPN server with the latest updates that was brought to us via the 1.2.0 firmware. So I'm just going to name it SPX Labs Home VPN. We're going to do client to site. We're going to select OpenVPN, of course. We are going to enable it, have it set to UDP, use the default 1194. I'm going to uncheck mark local networks and just set it to servers. So that's the server's VLAN. And then, of course, we need to have access to the WAN port. And for the subnet, the one thing that is new that we're going to do, 192.168.10. So I'm going to set the IP pool to be the same as my server's VLAN. So my server's VLAN or subnet is 192.168.10.1/24. Hit create. So that is now done. And just to show you guys again, so here are the two subnets I have. I have the LAN one, which is the default, and then the servers one that I created where my Unraid server lives on. And that is what we are about to reach via OpenVPN. So I'm gonna get this exported and imported into my test laptop, and we will connect. I'll show you that we can connect to something locally. Okay, before we import the profile, once again, we are connected to the Wi-Fi. If I bring up Firefox, we have internet access. So you can get to Google. I can try and get to my server that's on 192.168.10.10. Nothing works. What is my IP? I have an IP address. Everything seems to be in order. So let us go ahead and import the new OpenVPN config that I just created. So I did rename it to servers only OpenVPN, but that doesn't matter. Let's go ahead and add this. Enable. I am now connected as indicated by this icon in the top right corner. If I try and renegotiate, boom, I can hit my server perfectly fine, no problem. I can ask Google what is my IP. Doesn't work because it doesn't resolve. Google.com. Yep, see, nothing works. But hey, at least I can reach my Unraid server. So that's cool, I guess. All right, and so there you have it. So the software is just not quite ready yet as far as OpenVPN server is concerned. L2TP seems to work fine with access to your subnet, local subnets, as well as to a tunneled VPN or tunneled internet traffic to your home equipment. That all seems to be in order. OpenVPN still needs more time to bake, and such is the case with new hardware that is coming out. We've seen this before with like Ubiquiti as well. So I would imagine that as more updates start to roll out, we'll start to see more and more bug fixes as evident as past software releases and firmware releases have shown. So, you know, there'll be more to come in the future, and hopefully one day they get this squared away. But until now, it is, like I said, it's half-baked and not quite working all the way. Although you can get some mild success, but I would instead urge you to use L2TP if you must use the Omada hardware for your VPN service in its current state. Otherwise, you know, you could also set up a WireGuard virtual machine or container, or even an OpenVPN server that's on a virtual machine or container to kind of get around that, or whatever your favorite VPN service is on an existing server or computer, whatever it may be. So that is all for this video, guys, and I want to thank you all for watching and joining me on this. And who knows, maybe in the future, during the next software update for Omada's hardware, we will get a working one, and I'll make a fully fledged video that shows everything working end to end. Cheers.